Good morning, everyone. We all ready to go? Can I get a thumbs up? All right, awesome. All right, so Zach already made the introduction, but if you didn't hear, I'm Dave. I have a company called Print Simple. Awesome, love the energy.
Let me turn this on for you.
No, not yet. Thank you so much, though. Appreciate it. So, like I was saying, I have a company called Print Simple. Print Simple is out to try and solve the industry problem of giving you guys all the power to run your shop the way that you want to. So I think when Zach started touching on the subject of shop management software, the thing that I want you guys to get out of today is really that maybe Print Simple is the right fit for you, or maybe it isn't. But we need to figure out what your shop prioritizes and how you want to continue to grow your business. And that's what's going to really help you understand whether you need shop management software to go above and beyond. Because as you continue to grow, what you're going to realize is that you started off just printing, and now you're becoming this tech-enabled company, and you're almost turning into like a 3PL, kind of like what Avid Apparel is. And some of these words are foreign to you. You're like, what does that even mean? You know, I just signed up for buying a printing press, and I print shirts and make people happy. So that's great, and you know that's what you guys do really good. And what I saw yesterday was the amount of detail that goes into perfecting your craft. You know, a lot of the things that they were talking about, to be honest, went way over my head. And that's just because, you know, I've only been exposed to the screen printing industry through the clients that I speak to. But, you know, I've never run a press. I don't know how to set up a screen or do any of those things. And a lot of you were here yesterday and today, and some of you are not even implementing some of those practices, but you've been able to grow your business to millions of dollars of revenue. So that just goes to say that maybe you don't need some crazy system in your business. Maybe just doing it the way, going with the flow and making people happy is good enough, and you can grow a really great business that way. But as you continue to grow, you're going to start realizing, well, hey, there's better ways to do this. You know, I want to scale my team. I want to be able to put processes in place so that I can separate myself from the business, and I can trust that people can do what they need to do in order for me to now have an actual company. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned, you know, running my previous business. We had the challenge of DTG. So you can imagine, you guys are talking about complaining that sometimes water-based is not good for everything. Imagine for DTG, you couldn't even print on anything below 100% cotton. So the amount of challenges that we had, you know, we had to always come up with creative solutions for our customers. And that's why we went towards this print-on-demand model. Because we're like, the only way to be able to print one t-shirt and justify, you know, printing as many shirts as you are is, you know, you have to have low setup. And that's what makes DTG so interesting. But now with the rise of DTF, you're like, well, you know, get that out of the way and let's go DTF. And now you guys are sitting here saying, well, I'm in a screen printing shop, and you guys are talking about DTF and showing me how to use the Stampinator. I don't understand. You know, all I know is screen printing. Like, how am I going to implement these new technologies? And I'm going to do what makes me feel comfortable, and I'm going to continue to do things that way. But what I'm here to do today is challenge you and say, well, I'm not saying to stop doing that. I'm saying, how can we implement different technologies, whether it's printing, whether it's processes, to continue to evolve your business and keep moving the needle forward. So let's use this facility as an example. And, you know, Jesse, correct me where I'm wrong, but ultimately he's using screen printing to produce high quality apparel, but then he's ultimately has a fulfillment business on that side, right? So he's using screen printing to transform the way that he offers services to his customers. So maybe you're not going to go to Avid Apparel and say, hey, I need 50 t-shirts for my company. Maybe you need to have a pre-established brand. But that's his sales pitch. He goes to customers and he says, hey, listen, you have a crazy brand on Instagram, you know, to the points that Carl was talking about. All this Gen Z, these people trying to find ways that they can sell a hoodie for $200 and people are willing to pay for it. So that's the kind of clientele that it seems like Avid Apparel is attracting, and now he's able to provide them awesome quality prints and then be able to just fulfill them. So it's not to say that he's doing print-on-demand fulfillment by any means, but he's found a way to use this sort of way of doing it and transforming it to do it in the way that's creative for his business. So I think that's really what I want to learn from everyone in this room today. And just by a show of hands, how many of you are currently using a shop management software? Okay, so I would say maybe like 30% of the room or so. So I'm sure you guys can appreciate things like, Printavo and Shopworks and Deco Network and Inksoft, and they all do, what they do best, and I'm not here to say what I can do better. I'm here to tell you what we do differently. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, because some of these things that I'm going to be talking about might seem intimidating, but we're going to take it step by step and really help us understand why we want to adopt, shop management software, and, when am I ready to adopt that. So, I'm sure for the people that haven't raised their hands, maybe they're using things like Google Sheets and, maybe Monday.com or Trello or any of those other, ShipStation, maybe some of those words, softwares are familiar to you guys. And that's totally fine because, again, you've been able to grow your business as much as you have with some of these things. And who am I to say that you got to do it differently? Where I'm here to do is to inspire you in different ways that we can transform your business and improve the experience for your customers and for your employees. Because we know in this industry, obviously it's hard to come across good employees and keep them happy. And, especially the production grind, it gets really, crazy sometimes. And now, if you have a bunch of chaos everywhere and nothing has a system or process to it, people can start feeling a little discouraged. So I'm here to try and put perspective in saying, well, shop management software is not just a buzzword. It's really a company, like a company culture. So, if someone walks into your shop, especially somewhere like this, they look how clean it is. Typical screen printing shop might not be this clean. But that's just because that's how Jesse runs his business. And now he shares that, values with his employees, and it shows in the work that he does and the success that he's had. So what I'm here to do today is really just to help us understand, why do I want to use shop management? What should I look for? If I'm currently using one, what should it have? Or what are pain points that I have that I'm trying to solve with it? So maybe just to start with where we left off with Carl. Carl's coming in here. He's promoting the Lane 7 apparel product. Maybe a lot of you guys are familiar with it. Maybe some of you aren't. But, from my perspective, typically whenever I switch to new apparel, I'm mostly interested in thinking, how am I going to work this into the logistics of my company? Because, he might tell me he has an amazing product, but the ordering process of going to their website and ordering it, or their availability of inventory is not consistent. And now, it sounds exciting, but I can't really integrate it into my business because now I'm just running into shortages and things like that. So, those are the kinds of decisions that we're trying to use, and when it comes to our shop management, to say how can it be integrated with our suppliers, right? So you guys are probably all used to having 10 tabs open in your browser, saying, okay, let's go to S&S, what's their stock levels on this product? Let's switch to Alpha Broder, Sanmar, so on and so forth. And whoever has maybe the cheapest and the inventory available, that's where you're going to order it from. And that's great, but you can imagine trying to teach someone coming into the business to say, hey, this is where I order, and you just need to know every last detail about where you can order the stock from can get confusing. So it's kind of like, how can Print Simple help you with something like that? Well, Print Simple integrates with all the major suppliers. So just to imagine the workflow, it's like, instead of you now having to have your browser open, you want to order a Gildan 5000, you click a button, and now all of a sudden you see stock levels from Sanmar, S&S, Alpha Broder in one convenient UI. And the biggest thing that we're doing, obviously helping Canadian businesses, is if you're using the shop management tools like Printavo and things, they have mostly US catalogs. So, for having to get around that, you have to do a little bit of work, or they're not really willing to help you with those things. So it's obviously Canadians helping Canadians is obviously at the top of our value that we can add. But more importantly, I'm pushing the envelope with people like Carl to say, hey, listen, we got these customers that want to use your product, but if you guys don't have an API or a way of us integrating, well, then how can they make it, integrated into their workflow? So I'm like your, representative to say, get these suppliers moving. Maybe you're ordering from Canada Sportswear. You find value in their products over a Gildan 5000 because, you get it for the same price and a better quality. But you're like, I just can't get around to opening an account with them because it's just such a shitty process. So that's the kind of value that I can add to your business immediately, and helping with that sort of logistics, because obviously inventory is at the front of everything. Inventory is at the front of production, especially for a screen printer. I'm sure some people in this room might be contract screen printing. So, you get a PO from a customer, you're going to send that PO to your supplier, when that box comes in, you're going to bring it probably right to the press, because if you're running a contract, you don't have time to be sorting through too many things. You're just like, I expect that my supplier does an exceptional job packing my order, and I want to try and create as little friction for my operators having to sort through things and figuring that out. We need to figure out a way to get the job on the press and take it down and do the next job. So now if your supplier is letting you down and you don't have a simple way to do that, then obviously it's not good business, and maybe you're going to take it elsewhere. So with that being said, the biggest thing that we're going to take from today is just continuing to evaluate, does your business represent all the values that I'm speaking to? And if it doesn't, maybe you're thinking to yourself saying, what can I do to make it better so that I can actually work towards this goal of saying, my biggest values, my biggest growth is going to come in the people that I hire, and I want to take care of them because they take care of me. So, if that really sits well with you, then that's sort of, we're talking the same language here. So obviously, standing here, it's going to be very hard for me to be going through each and every slide and showing you the software in and out. So I'm going to do my best to help you envision how you can implement it to your business, and then from there we can obviously have more discussions. So with that being said, it kind of leads us into, everyone in this room has a different way of running their screen printing business, and it makes my life a living hell because I try to cater to one person, but then it doesn't cater to the next. And obviously software is amazing because it solves one problem for one person and it's supposed to solve it for many people. But of course, it's always an ongoing development to make it work for just about anyone in any type of business. So the types of businesses that, that I've heard of, through the clients that I work with is maybe some people prioritize team stores. So they go to schools, they have salespeople, they go to organizations, say, hey, listen, whenever you need to have your spirit wear done, come to me, I'm going to take care of everything. And maybe that resonates with some of you in this room. Maybe you're using things like Deco Network, Inksoft to do that, and that's great. Maybe for the next person, they're like, team stores is not really all that great because I don't got a sales guy, I don't got the people in place to be able to do something like that. So maybe you value more just going to local businesses and going to your local restaurants, these places that are local to your business, and saying, hey, you guys need merchandise, and whenever you bring on a new employee, I'm sure you want to greet them with some personalized experience, and let us help you be your t-shirt guys. And I'm sure a lot of people in this room run their businesses that way, or they previously did, and they're continuing to evolve. Maybe some people are like, I prefer not to have to go to local businesses. I prefer to advertise online. So I have a dedicated budget for Google ads, Facebook ads, all those great things. And I have a nice website that people can go to. And ultimately, you can just serve yourself because I have all my offerings online. So there's different ways to think about it. But of course, everyone has their way of doing it, and that's how you're going to run your business. So I'm not here to tell you what is the right way. It's just more about opening your eyes to more opportunities that might be out there. So that kind of leads me to the point of, has anyone ever heard of Custom Ink or Rush Order Tees? So they're one of the biggest printing companies in the US, and the way that they've really revolutionized it is they have a website which is really truly the best experience for self-serving. You go there, you can upload your logo, and you just check out. You don't really got to talk to someone. Sure, they have support, but with that business model, they've been able to scale to who knows how many presses they're running. I could only imagine it's hundreds of presses at this point, and you're thinking to yourself, how could I ever imagine a business like that? And it starts with the technology. So for them, they're spending all this time with research and development and developing this tool that can just let everyone go to it. I don't have to pick up the phone anymore. I don't have to say that my bottleneck in my operation is people, because now I got to train and hire 10 people to take on all this volume that we're getting. Or every time I receive a quote, like Carl said, someone wants 3 t-shirts, you're going to have an exchange of 70 emails, just close an order for $100, and you're like, I can't be justifying myself with this work. But if I have some salesman that's virtually online that when I'm sleeping can serve my customers, well, now it's something that maybe we can entertain a little bit better. So obviously, that's everyone's dream. They're like, wow, you talk about that like it's nothing, and it's like if I could ever have something like that, that would be my business would change. So I understand, getting to something like that is not easy, but that's where we come into play and we can really help you. Maybe on another side, some people I speak to, they don't prefer, the self-service design tools online where you can just go to a website and order, because they like having that personalized touch. They like talking to the customer, upselling them, saying, hey, I know you're looking at this. Maybe, you're ordering hoodies. Would you consider ordering beanies? And, upselling them and using that as their skill, because there's a lot of skills, people in this room that their skill is sales. So why take that away from you? But at the same time, now all of a sudden you're going out and you're making these connections with these people, but you don't have a simple way to enter those orders. And it's a total mess. And now, you're just collecting the payments and then, sending it to someone else in your team. They're missing details, and now, the service that you can deliver to your customer isn't as exceptional as the sale. Because there's no doubt in this room that everyone is a great salesperson, and you make a delightful first impression with your customers. It's just being able to deliver and then being able to give them the exceptional service all the way through. So now they come and they reorder, and they continue to purchase from you and things like that. So those are the types of things that we need to consider even in our shop management, because maybe there is a hybrid to say, it would be just great if I just have to receive an email. Maybe I don't have to complicate my customer with options and say, hey, you need to know about screen print colors, you need to know about stitch counts, you need to know about this. They don't know any of that. They just want to order a product. And if you can make it as simple as you can for them, they're going to place an order. But you don't want to go crazy having to, talk to every single last customer. So those are the kinds of things that Print Simple can enable with. And the reason why we can enable you with that is because we have all the integrations with the suppliers, and we allow you to customize that data to your business. So imagine that you're looking at a Lane 7 hoodie, and now you're like, I want to offer embroidery and screen printing for this hoodie, and now I want to make it easy for my customers to know about those options. Maybe right now you'll create like a PDF or a catalog that you do once a year, beginning of the year, everyone's busy at work, just putting your pricing list out and getting it to your customers. And now as soon as you make a change, you're like, oh, sorry, your price list is out of date, like here's a new one. And doing things that way, sure, it works when you have a small customer base, but as you continue to grow, you just want people to be able to look what you have and just place an order, or at least let you know what they want to order. So that's where the start of this presentation is going to be. And Rob, if you could just help me with the TV here, that'd be awesome. So I do apologize if I'm kind of looking away from you and looking at the screen at the same time, but what I'm trying to show you right now is, let's imagine that, I think once that goes away, great, okay. So let's just imagine that now you guys could spin up your own website with your own branding, because I think a lot of the growth in this industry comes in the pride that you put into your brand. So I know that you guys spend a lot of money and a lot of time researching and developing to get the best quality. So now we're just trying to carry that energy and attention into your presence online. So what you're seeing here is just a mock-up of, let's say you have a website where you want your customers to easily be able to find out about your product offering. And now some of the limitations that you might have, because you're like, well, what is this any different than maybe something like Deco Network or Inksoft? What we're trying to empower you with is, maybe a lot of people in this room know about Shopify. With a show of hands, does everyone know what Shopify is? Okay, so great. So obviously it's a little bit more common to you what that is, and they're obviously the best for e-commerce. But the reason why Shopify isn't such a great platform for printing is because you can't have these complicated catalogs set up on Shopify for your customers to be able to order from. So that's the gap that Print Simple is bridging. It's allowing us to take all this rich data, all these options that you offer. This hoodie gets embroidery, it's got 3D puff options, all these things that you want your customer to know about, and just giving them a great interface to be able to do that. So I'm just going to be going through some slides just to show you like a customer journey. And when I say customer journey, just maybe how someone could interact with this website to be able to ultimately get you some information, and now compare that to maybe how you're currently doing it and saying, wow, like if I could actually do something like this, like how much value would it add to my business? So I'm just going to go ahead and just pretty much explain as I'm clicking here that, imagine they're selecting a color. And now that color is going to show a grid of the available sizes that you offer. And I apologize if anyone can't see that. But now just a simple entry for you to now say what the quantities of what you need. Maybe they want to add another color. So they continue to click. Now as you continue to go through this, and I apologize, I'm probably going to have to zoom in a little bit here. So Rob, maybe you can help me out with this. Okay, so now we're bringing our attention to the bottom of the screen here. So this is kind of what I was speaking to. This product encompasses a bunch of options that you offer. So you want your customers to know this product, it comes in screen printing, direct-to-film, embroidery. And maybe you don't even want to make it that complicated for your customer. Maybe you just want to tell them, I do printing. And you interpret printing as just an entryway to get some information from your customer. Continue to go.
What, this next?
Yeah, yeah. 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 Sorry, I don't think it's... Yeah, okay, great. So they go ahead, they select the technology that you're offering. Okay, so now technology you're offering comes with a bunch of print areas. So again, we're giving, you might be saying to yourself, like, this seems like a lot of setup because now I got to tell the system, oh, you know, this product comes in direct to film with these print areas. But by doing this now, your customers know exactly what you offer. So they're not intimidated by a designer or anything like that. We're like, I don't know how to navigate this thing. They're just giving some preliminary option to say, do you want a logo on the front? Do you want it on the back? Wherever you might want it, just tell us so that we don't have to, you don't have to email us about such unnecessary information and we can have a good starting conversation. So as you continue to go through, you know, you're just seeing as I'm clicking, continue. And now if you scroll down here, if you could just scroll down. So now what's happening is right over here. Let me just go back a couple. So they've selected a print area. They're like, okay, I gotta have a file, or maybe I don't have a file. So we're just giving them the options to give us all this data so that now, as we receive this quote, we can then do something with it. So whether the more information they put in, the more information they get back. Maybe, you know, you just let your customers provide you with notes to say, hey, like, you know, maybe you don't have a logo, you don't have a starting point, I'll help you out with it. But you run your business the way that you want to. That's the point that I'm trying to get at, and really like helping you visualize saying that maybe things that you thought weren't possible in creating like a cool form. Maybe some people are using like Typeform or some of those kinds of tools in this room or a Google form to say, here, like just tell me some preliminary information that you want. And it doesn't really give your customers like a really cool experience to see the product and visualize it and feel confident to move forward. So that's really just what I'm trying to demonstrate here and saying like, hey, they slap a logo, maybe they add a note, if you just scroll down a bit, you know, different options for them to continue to fill in data so that by the time maybe they want some add-ons, maybe they want polybagging. You're just collecting all this information so that by the time a salesperson gets it, they know where to start. So I'll just continue here with the slides and then ultimately, if you just scroll up there, you see here that now they pretty much have this quote with all the information that they just added, and now from there maybe continue to add products, navigate the website, and then eventually submit that quote. So to the people in this room that sort of have a way of running a business where like all you do is just process quotes, maybe this is something that you can imagine yourself implementing as a way of just having a more simple way for your customers to do that without having to send an email. And again, it's like maybe that doesn't apply to everyone in this room, but it just goes to show, you know, these are the kinds of different ways that we can continue to improve your business. So that being said, that kind of concludes just this sort of workflow to help you, you know, imagine getting your catalog online and doing more with it. Do you have any questions?
Sure. So the online quote goes right into the software?
Right, so great question. So the question was, is the online quote tool integrated into the software? So what we've done is we've built a quote tool that works with Shopify. So now you build a Shopify website however you want it to look. So your quote tool doesn't have to look exactly like this. It can have your brand, it can have anything that you want on it. And now, because we have all this information inside the software to show your customers the options that are available, then now they can benefit from that and fill out this form in a more, you know, user-friendly way. Does that answer your question? Absolutely.
So this software is going to be an app that you purchase to integrate with your Shopify?
Right, exactly. So the Principal software is a standalone app, and now we're able to send data to wherever we need to. So you have obviously your e-commerce website that stands alone as its own beast, and then now the app just integrates very well with it. And again, you know, just speaking to the people in this room, they're like, well, what if I don't use Shopify? That's obviously where we are flexible in working with you on your website, but I'm just trying to inspire people to say, if you're trying to really run a strong e-commerce business, Shopify might be the platform of choice for you. And it might be just, this might help you make that decision that you couldn't make before because you weren't sure. Or perhaps, you have your own website and you're like, how can I benefit from this? Or maybe I'm considering doing something like this and now I don't got to go hire a company to do this for me. That's really what it comes down to. Anything is possible with software, but it comes at a very high expense. And maybe for a lot of people in this room, you're like, well, I don't have the budget. Or, I need to think about that before I can make that decision. So we're just trying to empower you to avoid having to do the things that Zach and I were speaking about in terms of having to hire our own development agencies. I had no idea how to do any development 7 years ago. I had no idea. I went to school for business and I knew how to print and, that was pretty much it. And now I trusted, other people to come in and do their job, but being someone who knows how to develop a platform, being someone who actually knows how to solve a problem are two different things. And that's what led to disappointments and all the wasted time that Zach spoke about. So what I'm really trying to do is save you guys a lot of time and saying, even if Principle is not the right solution for you today, you're taking this knowledge and saying, like, these are the kinds of things that I should be thinking about. And when I am ready for them, at least I know the right way to make those decisions and what to look for. Before I continue, is there any other questions? Absolutely. Okay, so great question. So if I understood that right, it's like, does it integrate well with Deco Network? Right, so great question. So the question was, does the software integrate well with Deco Network? And my response to that would be, we're trying to replace Deco Network. And we're trying to do it in a more flexible way, in the sense that you have the platform of choice now. You're not stuck on the Deco Network platform and now having to conform to their way of doing things. And the reason why I say that, and I'll speak to Sean in the room, when you start growing your business to a certain point, you're going to start seeing that maybe, now you want to start marketing it a little bit more. And now you hire companies to help you with that, and they're like, Deco Network or Inksoft, they're not really built to market that well because there's so many different things that you need to think about when you're marketing and different things to make sure that you're not wasting budget. And I don't want to get into that complicated landscape, but Shopify is just the platform that is really good for e-commerce, and that's why they're the best at what they do, and that's why that's a platform of choice for us to integrate, because it's just overall you're going to have a really great business, on the customer-facing side, and then it integrates well with the back end, if that makes sense. Absolutely.
You guys integrate with Wix as well?
Currently, we don't, but those are the kinds of things that I love to collect feedback on, and willing and able to make exceptions and integrate where there needs to be. Any other questions? Yep.
So if I already have a shop set up for Deco Network,
Yes.
is there a way to easily port all those products, all that information, my customer database? Is there an easy way to port that over into Principle?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, what if I'm already selling on Deco Network? And again, for people in this room, what is Deco Network? It's a shop management software that has the similar capabilities of what I'm showing you, but it's all encompassing in Deco Network. And as you start to grow, people start to realize why maybe it's not the best solution. So to your question, we integrated, when we first started our company, we actually went to Deco Network and says, how can we partner and add more value to your customers? Because you guys do something really great when it comes to the design tool and that catalog. But then as we started going further with it, we realized that most customers are not really happy with Deco Network, or they're looking to kind of get off of it. So to answer your question directly, it's kind of like, imagine that your Deco Network catalog would be replicated in Print Simple in a similar way. And now eventually Deco Network would eventually be eliminated, or you would replace the Deco Network Business Hub with the Print Simple warehouse management side of things.
Yeah, it's more the work that I already had in Deco Network. How much more work is it to move over?
Right. Okay. So sorry. Thanks for clarifying. So when it comes to things like that, that's where there's a little bit of an additional conversation that needs to be had to just say, okay, these are potential next steps and things like that. So by all means, we can have another chat once after this presentation to talk about some of those things in more detail. So with that being said, I just want to go to my next slide here. I'm going to need you to click. Just 1 second. Yep. Just 1 sec. Okay, so here's a look into the principal dashboard. Okay, so it's not going to really mean all that much to you at this point because it's going to take a little bit more diving into it to understand how everything really works. But just to understand everything high level, going off of the point that I made about inventory. So one of the biggest things when it comes to inventory is that you guys are so integrated with these suppliers where like all of your workflow is sort of like around the fact that you order from S&S Activewear. So now maybe considering switching over from S&S to another supplier might be like a hard decision, or you might not consider doing it because everyone we rely on this supplier and so on, and we realize that. But now with the way that all these suppliers are offering the same product, we want to make it easier for you to be able to say, well, sometimes I order from S&S, sometimes I order from Alpha Broder, but that decision is going to be made on a monthly basis. Maybe today I order from them, tomorrow they're doing a promotion of $1 off. I'm going to switch all my business to them for the month of March, and then I want to switch back. But I've invested so much energy and time in setting up my, my shop management that I wouldn't make that decision so easily. So what you're seeing here is inventory rules. And what they are is a simple way for you to come to the system and pretty much say that I want to set a priority of the suppliers that I order from. So, you always want to go in the order of S&S first, Alpha second, Sanmar third. And that's based on inventory availability, the price, all these different things. So this is where maybe things seem a little bit complicated, like, okay, what does this all mean? This is sort of where I'm trying to speak to the benefits of automation and being able to set up your business so that you can just plug people into it. Because now you don't have to train a new salesperson. You're setting up these inventory rules so that by the time you finish setting up these rules, we can even go as far as saying, I only want to go to S&S if they have stock at Toronto. Because anything outside of Toronto is going to come too late, and now I can't meet my SLAs for my customers. Now all of a sudden I told my customers I'd get it done in 1 to 3 business days. I got 1 to 3 business days in just transit time for the stock to come in. How can I integrate that into my workflow? So everyone runs their business a little bit differently. Maybe you guys tell your customers everything's done in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever that might be. I only speak to that point because I was speaking to Sean. He's found a lot of value in just being able to turn over these customer orders in 3 to 5 business days, and it just leads to a lot of great reviews and obviously and just repeat orders. So anytime that you have a chance to give your customer that exceptional experience, then it's a little bit harder, easier said than done. But with tools like this, it might be a little bit more realistic to implement. So as we set up our inventory rules, just to give you guys a visual, because I know a lot of it comes down to the visual. In this diagram, you're seeing for my business, I want S&S Activewear Canada. I prioritize Toronto first, Calgary second, then Alpha Broder Canada, Richmond Hill, Ontario location, and then we got Lane 7 Apparel. So obviously Lane 7, they got to get a little bit up to speed with integrations, so that's why I'm going to be pressing him to make sure that inventory is live in Print Simple as well, just like you get with all the other guys. But this is the kind of things, imagine now Lane 7 is integrated. It goes from up here to down here to up here, and now all of a sudden, anytime you have a chance to order from Lane 7, it's just simple as telling the software that. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, how does this actually, work in terms of production and ordering inventory? So that's kind of where I'm going to lead into the next point. But before I do, was there any questions? Absolutely.
You got any Canadian suppliers like Redwood, stuff like that?
Right. Great question. So when it comes to these independent catalogs, the only barrier of entry is just working with the supplier directly to say, hey, do you have like a CSV file with all your data? So that even if I can't offer you an integration to get their live inventory, at least I can give you the catalog to be able to use to add to a quote or to customize so that it's integrated into your production workflow. Is there any other question? Yep. Absolutely. That's a great question, and that's why I'm here today, right? I can only make the software better with sort of that kind of feedback. It's like, this is sort of like a buzzword algorithm, but really it's just, giving the system information and saying, make the business decisions for me automatically. So, not only do we prioritize on supplier and location, but maybe something like price. And that's why, I come out to these events and try to speak to people and get to know really what they need so we can continue to implement those things. And, speaking to that point, it's like what you're seeing today, it's probably going to be even different by next week and the following week, because this is just an ongoing thing. We're obsessed with developing the solution, and, we know that there's still more things that could always be better, but at least we have, a great place to start and to get you guys excited about it and talk about. So that's really what, I'm trying to do here today, and obviously feedback like that is amazing, so I appreciate it. To Sean's point, I think the biggest thing is we're trying to take away like day-to-day decisions from our production staff and people that are maybe in charge of doing purchasing, because we don't need to complicate their job, right? Listen, you have these predefined business rules. You just want to set them up for success. How many times has someone ordered and made a $200, $500 mistake, and you're like, man, if I just would have had a better way to do that, like all of a sudden now that person's not going to make that same mistake again. So that's really what the point that we're trying to make. It's just like maybe inventory rules are not even important to your business. And that's what's great about Print Simple. You don't have to use all the things that I'm showing you today. Maybe half of these things don't even apply to you. And you're like, maybe I'm waiting for Dave to talk about this one thing that I do. And that's where, it's always great to get to know you and talk about those things. But in the cases that you want to take your business to the next level and you want to take away some of the redundant processes in the day-to-day, how amazing would this be when, 2020 was around and every damn supplier is out of stock? And you're like, man, like I have no loyalty to no one. I have loyalty to the person that just has stock right now. And, in our business, I accidentally did like $60,000 of business with Alpha Broder. And like they had an account open and they called me. They're like, hey, like, you guys still using Alpha Broder? I'm like, not for anything, but I just ordered from you because SNS didn't have it. Shout out to Carl for making sure that he had it that time, right? So, that's kind of the great thing about this, like, with all the logistics that goes into these things, like maybe today stock is really great and maybe tomorrow it's not. So just being able to make those quick decisions is going to really help you run your business. Now, as we shift our focus to this screen, again, it's really hard to understand every last detail that's going on until getting like a more intense, demo. But this is a screen of your production, okay? So the way that we think at Print Simple is, your order has all your information. So typically how you guys do it, you get a PO from a customer. It tells you got screen printing, graphics, embroidery, DTF for these products and all these things. But now, you as the business, you're like, okay, I know everything about this order, but maybe there's some people in the operation that don't need to know every last detail. So what I mean by that is, if you have an inventory guy, why does he need to know about screen printing graphics on this product? Why can't we just give him a simple way to go in and see exactly where he needs to order his inventory and just separate him from the whole process so he can do his job independently? And the same thing goes for the people that are doing the printing. They're just there waiting for the right moment that inventory is in and they can run the press. Or, there's inventory at the dock at the back and they can go pick it up and run their job. So we're just trying to separate the information in a way that's convenient to the people that are doing their job, and that's what we're trying to empower you with. And that's why a lot of people in this room might say, I know Jesse, he's like, Monday.com is amazing. And he likes it because of things like this. And now maybe he likes a lot of the things I'm showing him, but he's like, maybe you're missing one thing. And now he doesn't have to wait for me to develop it for 2 months and say, well, sorry, you have to wait. He can just spin it up himself. So I think that's really where I want to continue to revisit in this presentation. It's like, you got to do it the way that you run your business, and you almost need to learn about the perfect way to do it before you're ready to take on a comprehensive software. You know, you kind of just need to write it out, even if you're not using a software right now. Just write it out, write down every step, and just look at it and stare at it and visualize it. Create a little diagram. Yeah, I know a lot of these people in this room are visual people, so that's what it comes down to. I'm visualizing everything and just trying to figure out where does everything go and how can I fit that into this process. And when I know how I want it to be done, then I'm ready to take that next step, or potentially, you know, talk about things that I need, that I would be able to challenge, you know, people that I'm talking to for other shop management softwares. So that's really what it comes down to. So in this view here, let's just imagine that I have a convenient way to go to inventory, and now these tabs represent the different stages of inventory. But again, to this point, it's like there's information about inventory that's connected to an order, but me as an employee that just takes care of inventory, all I care about is just making sure I get all the stuff that needs ordering. Because that's what my boss told me. 5 o'clock hits, submit the POs to the suppliers so that, you know, it comes the next day or the day after, and we can continue to run our business. So as I select those items, I'm going to go ahead now and, Rob, if you wouldn't mind. So I have this draft purchase order, right? And this draft purchase order, if you could just scroll down a little bit. Okay. So I have this draft purchase order, and now all these items got added, right? You know, they have all their respective quantities and things like that. But at this point, I set up my account where a product doesn't have a supplier until I make a decision just before I'm ready to submit the purchase order. So that's why you're seeing here that all these items are inventory for pending orders, but there's no supplier defined. But luckily for us, we have this magical run inventory rules button up top that's going to now make decisions based on what I set up for my business. So as I click the next button, you're going to see that I ran these inventory rules, and then all of a sudden I'm populating information on these lines. And now we're seeing supplier quantities show up. We're seeing prices show up. And this is all information that we're getting right from your account. So when you get set up with Print Simple, you have your own SNS account. You plug that into our software, and now we can get information just in time as you ask for it. And that's exactly what I'm showing you here. And then now let's just say if you just scroll down a little bit, now lucky for us, we just got some more orders in, and they happen to be lane 7. So again, this lane 7 product, obviously, you know, United Blanks has a monopoly here in Canada, so that's great for them. You can't get it anywhere else anyway, right? That's right. So in this case, you know, inventory rules wouldn't be as important because you're not trying to, you know, shuffle where you're getting that product from. But still, your employees don't need to know that. They don't got to be an expert of procurement in terms of where everything comes from. They just need to know, I just need to order a Gildan 5000 small black t-shirt. And now wherever that's going to come from is going to be up to the business. Absolutely. Question?
Can I pay the $269 price?
Hey man, listen, we were getting some prices like that a while back, so we gotta hook you up with Carl. So he's got the mafia over there. So as I continue to add more items, that you can see here. Oh well, the inventory rule says lane 7, Toronto, Ontario. So Carl, whenever I ask you for the integration, you're going to be able to give me all that beautiful inventory data, right? Right. So the point is that I now have this purchase order that's combining all the items that I need to order. So I'm making it super simple for my staff to be able to just create one big purchase order. But now, you guys are probably sitting here saying, well, hold on a second. Why would I want to have one purchase order that combines many suppliers? That's like not a good idea for receiving. My staff needs to know this box came from SNS. So I should be expecting that one box. And the next box comes from lane 7. I'll be expecting that box separately. So as we continue, what we're going to show you here, if you can just maybe zoom, yeah, there you go. So this is still a draft purchase order. So what this means is that we have some items that are shipping from lane 7, and then we have some that are shipping from Toronto. Now, in addition to that, we set thresholds in the system to say, well, SNS has a free shipping threshold of $300. So because we have the live integration and we're keeping up with the calculations, we can tell your employees who are ordering, hey, look, your items from SNS qualify for free shipping. Maybe this message comes up in orange and says, well, you're under that 300. Okay, hold on a sec. Maybe I'm not going to submit this purchase order because my boss tells me only free shipping. If it's not free shipping, tack on something else. Go and add it. So the point that I'm trying to show you is that this is just one big purchase order for all of your ordering for, let's just say, February 4th. But now, when it actually comes to submitting the purchase order, it really depends on what supplier you're working with or how complicated your workflows are. So maybe right now at this point in your mind, you're like, okay, this is where I open up the tabs in my browser, And now at least I have a very organized way to know what I got to order. So I go to the system's telling me Lane 7 Apparel, United Blanks. I got to order that. I go to their website, do that. I scroll down, I do this, and then pretty much I just mark it as ordered. We can take it a step above, and we could actually submit this order to S&S straight from the platform. So you just set up a default credit card payment method, and now that information gets sent over. And the benefit of doing something like that is because now we're start talking about integrating with your inventory, or your accounting, I should say. So now that invoice from S&S can go into your QuickBooks account, or whatever software you're using to manage that, instead of having to manually, go through your emails and wait for that invoice to come back and then, send it off to the accounting team. So that's where, true automation comes and adds a lot of value to the day-to-day and all the different people involved. Now, obviously, it's a little bit intimidating, so we don't have to start there, but at least we can start imagining, sort of the things that it'll free up in your day-to-day. Because, maybe a lot of you are doing this kind of process because you can't trust someone in your organization to do it, or, if the person that's doing it in your organization has a lot of, stress because they're like trying to figure out what the hell do I got to order when and all these things. So we're just giving your employees tools to, again, create a delightful experience, not only from the customer side, but for your staff side as well. So now, as I click on the next button, what you're going to see here is the option to now even further customize how this purchase order should be confirmed. Because so maybe you look at this and you say, you know what, I would actually like to have one purchase order from like 4 suppliers because that keeps the job grouped up. So now when the guy actually has to run the press, he waits for every single box from every supplier to come in because I don't want to partially run the job. So maybe that's a good way of doing it for you. Maybe on the other hand, you're like, you know what, I'd rather have one purchase order per supplier because that matches reality better. Because now all I got to train my staff is one box is one supplier. Whatever came from that supplier is now, it should be in that box. So if it isn't there, then there's an issue. We've got to talk to the supplier, get them to send us the items, whatever that are missing. So obviously with S&S, maybe you go on their website, although you think you're submitting one order, because the stock is getting fulfilled from Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary, it now ends up being 3. And then now you got to explain that to your staff. So it's not like they short shipped you. It's just, you got the items from Toronto first, and then the ones from Calgary are coming in 5 days. And now you got to explain that to your staff to let them know, hey, this part of it is for Calgary, this part of it is for Vancouver. So those are the kind of benefits of how you might, see yourself customizing it to the workflow that, matches what your operations are. So as we continue, the result is like, if I chose the first option saying, let's match reality and, every order is one supplier, I end up with this, so that now, sorry, Rob, just one step back. So now when my staff goes, I can print out this purchase order right here. And now I give my staff a bunch of pieces of paper that represent all these incoming purchase orders. Now, when that purchase order comes in, they scan a QR code, and it's going to tell them what should be in that box. So it's a very one-to-one match. There's no confusion. There's no asterisk saying it might be this way this time, it might be that way another time. We're trying to reduce the amount of confusion that comes at every step of the process, because if things just make sense, then everyone just goes home happy knowing, like, printing is complicated for all the reasons of the stuff that you perfect. Receiving a box of inventory and counting it and making sure that you actually have what you ordered shouldn't be that complicated, right? So as we continue, the point that I'm trying to make is that this resulted in these 2 purchase orders, and then now you'll see options on the page to be able to receive the shipment. So, in some softwares, maybe, you just have the ability to mark a purchase order as received without being able to go line by line. Because, you want to have your staff verify. Do I actually have the 50 that were required? Mark those as received. But then maybe some businesses are like, I don't have time to go through every single line item because we run a more contract screen printing type of business. We just trust that our supplier does it. We'll figure out the shortages later. So there's different ways to use the system. But as we continue, imagine that you went through the process of receiving it, and now we scroll down just a little bit, and we can see, okay, so all of these lines were received, but for this last line, we're missing items. So now you might be wondering, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made here. Oh, well, what do? Do we stop the job? Do we put it on hold and now go to our supplier? Or do we say, let's run this job. Let's split this 10 items that have been missing into a separate purchase order that a customer service person can handle, run the press, and then just make a note on the order saying to the customer, your other 10 are going to come at a different time. Because that's the sort of relationship that you have with that customer, and they prefer speed over everything in their order being delivered all at once. So the idea is just like, I'm talking about things that maybe you guys currently do, some things that you're like, nope, don't do it that way, but it's flexible to do it the way that makes sense. That's really what we want to take from this. Whatever makes sense to you is what we're trying to model in terms of the software and the reality of what you can do with it. So just to the point that I was speaking, let's say I click the next frame. You know what? You got to click the yeah. So in this case, maybe I go the first route where I say, you know what? Job's got to stop. I got to flag this as missing items. I got to let the customer service people know, and they got to scroll down here and figure out, where these other items are going to come from, and so on. Or I go the other route. If you press back, so now you go the other route where you're just like, you know what? I want to just split the purchase order, and we'll deal with what we have now, and we'll deal with the rest later. So as I continue there, so what you're seeing in the visual here is this is purchase order February 24, number 2. So these are the missing items that are isolated just for your staff to take care of and figure out where they're going to get it. And you made a decision to move forward with the rest of the other order that came in. So the idea is that now maybe you're going to see over here on this side, I add a note, let the person know, hey, the supplier with us, let people know about it. So there's communication, there's no communication gaps in your shop. Because obviously the guy that's running the press or receiving shouldn't have to walk up to the marketing office to say, guys, we're short 5 shirts. Okay, we got a meeting, we got clients here, guys, we'll deal with this after, okay, write a note, okay. You know what I mean? I'm sure that's happened to a lot of you. And we're just trying to empower your staff to not feel intimidated to come talk to you and say hey, I can't even come talk to you because you're always busy. You're just constantly getting more orders here, just always making me more busy, and now I got problems and you're not even helping me with them. What kind of staff is that, right? So that's why we're trying to give them the tools to be able to make decisions and be able to communicate the information so that you can now not have to go and yell at someone saying, why did we short ship that customer 5 shirts? Oh, well, you told me I should handle it that way, and here's the proof. So just creating more expectations and processes that's what really the system comes back to. So as we just, I think that would be, so now in the other case, well, let's say everything is perfect. So now, we come here, if you just scroll up, Rob. So we mark the purchase order as received. So everything is great. Now, one thing that you're going to notice all of a sudden is these tasks appeared. Okay? So now you might be wondering, what the hell is a task? Okay? So that's where now we get into the next level of customizing our workflow. So let's imagine a screen printing job coming through a system. Okay, so screen printing job comes through the system. All of a sudden, we need to do a bunch of steps to be able to get that thing ready so that by the time the inventory comes in, we know exactly what to do with this box of shirts. And everyone that was involved in this order has done their job leading up to this point. So imagine a task is a way for you to customize the workflow at different stages of production. So you might have an automation that says, every time an order is submitted to production for screen printing, I want there to be some task or a job, maybe job is more common to you, and that job encompasses, separating the screens and mixing the ink. Because no matter what, I want that to be done before, even if the inventory has been received. Because if we do that, then that means by the time the actual inventory comes in, we're going to be able to move quicker on it. Then maybe you might say, another step in my workflow is I want there to be a task for someone to, burn a screen when the purchase order has been confirmed, because now I know for sure that the order is actually on order from the supplier and that inventory is coming in 1 to 2 to 3 days. So we're creating these very specific milestones in the production process to allow for us to say timing is everything. You might be used to a workflow where everything happens step at a time. So maybe one of your steps is inventory. And then the next step is mixing ink. And then the next step is, burning your screens. And then the next step is production. But what we're trying to push the envelope on is your team works in parallel to each other. So we don't want them to be stuck in saying, I have to wait for the status of some order or some artwork to change from, waiting for inventory to mixing ink to start working on it because the guy before me hasn't done his job. And that's where you'll realize that, having that parallel type of working and saying some jobs have to go in steps because I can't maybe prep the screen before the inventory is ordered because I don't know, maybe the inventory is not going to get ordered for 2 weeks. And now I don't have the luxury of having, all the screens that Jesse does. And now I need to be careful. I need to make sure I only burn the screens that I know I'm going to turn over in the next 2 days. So that's why timing would be important for me in my shop. Whereas maybe you have the luxury of having a lot of screens in inventory and, you just want to have them ready. So whether it's in 1 day or 2 weeks, it's ready for you to run it. But the point is that now the person who has received this purchase order can pretty much lead and say, okay, well, I know exactly where this needs to go now. So whether you involve them in that process or not, they're ultimately going to see the task and say, okay, this thing tells me that this job needs to go to production or this job needs to go to this next place. And the system is helping you do that. So again, I know it's hard for me to help you visualize absolutely every last detail of it, but based on everything that I've said so far, does it make sense? Is there any other questions?
Is there a dashboard that shows like where everything is happening in production?
Absolutely, great question. So let's just say the question is there like a dashboard that shows us everything that's happening in production? So the short answer is absolutely, and that kind of goes back to the initial slides here. And I'm going to probably take over the mouse here and show you some of the ins and outs of the platform in a second. But the way that we break it down right now is, you got orders, you got items, you got inventory, you got tasks, you got stations, and you got shipments. Okay? So a lot of this is not going to make sense until I actually dive in. But what this is allowing us to do is, for a lot of people in this room, they think about items and they're like, I don't process my orders based on the items. I take the whole order and I process it, or I break it down by artwork. Whereas maybe some people in this room have considered print on demand. And they're like, I would love the idea of like print on demand if I could. Maybe I can have a hybrid of screen printing and print on demand. Maybe if I run my business like Jesse, this guy comes to me and he says, hey, I got a sick Instagram brand and I'm going to sell thousands of units. And you're like, hold on a sec, bud. Let's give you some DTF samples. You can have your one item, figure it out, and then once you're ready to talk to me about real business, we can move you to a screen printing type of program. But now, the challenge with these two workflows is that they're totally different. You would never run your workflow in screen printing on an item basis. We need to group things any chances that we get, because if we don't, then we're not efficient. So what you're seeing here is, the items view is going to represent the ability to say, whenever it calls for it, maybe I have an item workflow. Maybe now, when I receive a box of items from a supplier, it includes items from several different orders. Maybe a box includes like 30 orders, and now I need to barcode every item to keep track of what this actual inventory is for. So that's the kind of things that we're enabling. But just to your point, the next thing being tasks, stations, and shipments. So what stations allow us to do is to create a specific place for work for our staff. So for example, you have your dark room. So that could be considered a station. And it's encompassed by a department of screen printing. So maybe another station could be your ink mixing station. Maybe another station could be one of your presses. So a station could represent whatever workstation that you have in your production. And ultimately, if your business is small, maybe you don't need to have all of these stations. Because you're like, the guy who mixes ink, burns screens, and does everything is just one guy. Why do I got to make it complicated for him to find his work? So I just have a station called screen printing. And now I just do the workflow like some of the other guys do, where it's just like everything's a status. So the first status is mixing ink, the next status is burning screens, and so on and so forth. And that's one way to run your business. But of course, for maybe the shops, as you start getting bigger and you want that parallel workflow like I was talking about, where we're not limiting people to do multiple jobs at the same time, that's where you might find value in it. So I'm not sure how we're doing on time.
30 minutes.
So we have
30 minutes altogether.
Okay.
15-minute demonstration. 15
Awesome.
questions.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through one last flow.
10:45 we'll cut off.
And this is where I'm going to just get into maybe visualizing some other options here in Print Simple that will help you. And I'm going to need your help here for a sec. So before you scroll, so let's go to the top first. So this would be your most maybe relatable screen in Print Simple in terms of some of the other softwares you've seen out there. To set up an invoice, Printavo invoice, a Deco Network invoice. You open it up, quote, say add the items that you want to add to your order, add the artworks, do all that great stuff, and you just have a nice place to do all that. So Print Simple calls that estimates, okay? Now, the point that I'm bringing up about this screen as we scroll a little bit down is that that idea about inventory rules can also apply here. So maybe decision making has to be done before an order is submitted. You want your person that's organizing it to know very well that this item can be ordered from your select supplier before you confirm it with your customer, because you don't want to disappoint them and say, hey, I promised you this specific color and this specific SKU, and then all of a sudden you can't get it, and then it leads to, you know, like this disappointment in the sales cycle. So whichever way you run your business is up to you. Maybe you don't want to map a supplier whenever you're putting a simple thing through because you don't want to complicate the salesperson's job. Let the person in the back figure it out, right? So, you know, in that regard, we would, if we did click Add Inventory Rules, if you click the button, Rob, just click anywhere, yeah? Yeah. So in that case, it's kind of the same principles, right? You know, in this case, because the business says we got to order from there, it's going to check, and then this icon, this green box icon, just denotes that it's available. So all these little micro details is going to be really hard for me to show you standing up here, but just trying to help you visualize saying that these things can be integrated into different processes in your business, and depending on how you set yourself up, then that's ultimately, you know, how you can see yourself using the system. So before I continue, was there, you know, any specific questions about everything you've seen so far?
For the estimates,
Yep.
If we go back to the first slide, when the customer, not physically go back to the first slide, but when you were explaining the customer inputting their details to
Yes.
the quote,
Yes.
does the quote that they input generate?
That's a great question. Great question. So the question was, you know, in the beginning of my presentation, you had that nice website with all these options for the customer, and like now, how does that data go into the system? Does it actually automatically populate an estimate in Print Simple? And the answer is yes. We're populating the information that your customer gave as a preliminary way, so now your staff can go in and kind of make note of all this mess, right? Because it could be very limited. You know, they might not give you a graphic. And now we just got to attach a note to say, hey, they want these shirts, they have no graphic, you know, figure that out, follow up with the customer. But at least, again, it eliminates the manual data entry to get to this point, because now the system was able to add Gildan 5000 small, you know, and so on, and all the different sizes, and based on all the customer input. So we're just trying to eliminate the manual data entry from your day-to-day, because it's great to be busy with quotes, but, you know, just having to enter them all day, every day is not where you want to be spending your time, right? You want to increase your capacity to get more orders to the door because you have a more efficient way to put them in. And again, now talking to the benefits of your employees being able to use something like this. Well, now they don't have to be making decisions and figuring out like, hey, do we offer Gildan 5000 for screen printing? Like, I don't know. Can I sell a person a hoodie, like a Lane 7 hoodie? Is it good for embroidery? I don't know. I'm just a salesperson. So the system is allowing you to build up the brain of your business so that now that person can just do their job and you can add more people. So whenever you bring on, you know, someone like Zach into your company who knows, you know, sells his equipment but doesn't know much about printing, then you don't have to explain to him how things work, right? We're just going to tell him, hey, listen, just do what the system told you. Go ahead and just put, like, you can put an embellishment for embroidery on the left chest because I told you you can. You don't have to be worried or scared that you're going to get this order now and people are going to be like, well, sorry, I gave you the wrong information. And it's like, you know, what's going on there? So that's sort of the idea. You know, the more that you put in, the more that you get out, and the more that you can, you know, add processes to your business. You know, and that's, again, it's, take it with a grain of salt. Some people, they get scared. They're like, well, you know, this seems like a lot of things to manage. Well, if you want to have that great customer experience, you got to put in some work to be able to give your customers that experience. So all the time that you guys are spending in perfecting your craft in terms of printing and getting the best quality, you know, put that time and energy to places like this so that you can free up your time and continue to make more sales and explore more ways to grow your business. Yeah, absolutely. For stores? Yes, so what we've actually done is the same way that we adopted Shopify for this quoting stuff, we've also found a way to use Shopify for stores. And I'll send everyone I don't want to disclose a customer's website without his permission, but if he allows me to share it, I'll be able to show you guys a little bit later today. But ultimately, we've been able to find a way to have one Shopify website with many different stores, but the website looks and takes on the feel of that store. So it's not like you're sending them to some random URL that has like your logo at the top and they're like, am I in the right place? right? Like we want to create that experience. Like if someone goes to a Gradware website, they're seeing their school logo on it. So that's kind of the idea, and that's where we understand that like everyone is using these solutions and they do a lot of things. You know, Deco Network is not a bad solution, and none of these solutions are bad. It's just what you prioritize and what you need is sort of, you know, how we're prioritizing our roadmap to make sure you guys get the features that you need. So that being said, was there any questions before I dive into some more? Sorry, just absolutely.
So in terms of how the estimate converts to an actual invoice,
Yes.
does the customer have, like, do they have the option to pay through Shopify but also physically to use the Shopify charges?
Yeah, great question. So the question was like, you know, on the topic of estimates, you know, so what happens? Like customer submits the quote, the information comes in, now how do we collect payment and do all those things? So Print Simple has this estimates feature which can be used as an approval feature. So imagine the same things that you would benefit from other softwares in terms of artwork approval and collecting payment, that's integrated into this. So the customer would actually, you know, you would connect your payment processor account to Print Simple, and we can handle sending them the invoice and then giving them an option to pay online. And so then by the time they actually pay, it goes straight to you, and we have nothing to do with it besides the integration that we provide to you. Sorry, Sean?
For the online stores, like, right, you do a Shopify thing, whatever, but your client can also have a Shopify store and connect to your Print Simple account. And he can sell whatever he wants, and he can produce it for him. Print Simple enables you to connect to any Shopify Etsy store owner, sells for you, and he can produce. You can also have your website that you show up front and do like a deco ink software, link store. But if the client wants to have his own store, he can do that. He can produce for him. So you don't need to build the store for him, right? That's a big asset too.
So just to expand on what Sean was saying, you know, in addition to obviously having your brand, you know, on Shopify or whatever that website might be, if your customer comes to you and says, hey, like I have my own website, I don't need your service of you building my website for me. I got my exclusive brand, you know, I can't have you touch anything. All I want you to do is be my merchandising solution. We integrate with the Shopify platform and provide those customers with tools to enable you to offer them that like kind of print-on-demand style of business. And you know, I'm not touching on it too much because obviously everyone in the room is more on the screen printing side, but just kind of again opening up your mind, saying how could I ever implement DTF? You know, maybe that is an entryway. Say you got more customers coming to you for these one-offs. You know, maybe now DTF is a much more simple way to do it, opposed to the traditional way with DTG that, you know, most people are not interested in. So thanks for, you know, reminding me, Sean.
Even if it's more bulk screen print run, they can sell online on their store. You can link it up at the end and batch all those items and produce them as screen printing if you want to, right? So it's not just for on demand. You can use it as fulfillment for it.
So just to continue to expand on that, it's like, again, imagine that you housed pre-printed inventory and you wanted to offer a service like that to your customers. Those are the kinds of workflows that we would be able to offer, and the idea is that it starts with an estimate, but instead of the shipping method being, you know, pure later ground, imagine that now this estimate is going to be added to inventory so that now you have the pre-printed inventory that you then go and shelf. So I'm not sure how well that resonates with a lot of you, if it makes a whole lot of sense, but you know, again, you take it for what it's worth. Maybe something like this is something you've dreamed about, but now you see that there is an option out there that you could consider, and we can have a further discussion about it. So again, I know I'm running a little bit short on time, so I'll just maybe spend one last slide here, and then that's about it.
15 minutes.
Okay. So I'm going to need to access the platform. Can you,
PowerPoint?
No, yeah, like the actual platform. Can you go to that tab? Yeah, so go to this, sorry, just double click, yeah. So if you can go back here, and then I'm just going to ask you. Okay, so click that button. Okay, so maybe we can even just hide, yeah, there you go, great. Okay, so speaking to automations, because, you know, probably a lot of things you guys are wondering, it's like, yeah, Dave's talking about all these things, but like, how does it actually work? Like, you know, how does all the things connect in production and stuff? So what we've pretty much allowed you to do is create an automation rule that allows you to customize the way that you run your business. So what I mean by that is, as you click on the first drop-down menu, you have to click it, it's live, like the first drop-down. Yeah, select event, yeah. So in this case here, you can see that we've created these convenient events, and again, they don't mean all that much to you, but let's visualize, you know, whenever an order is submitted to production, that's the thing that tells the system, okay, are you listening? Now I want to do something with that information. So that's pretty much the entry point. And now as we continue to navigate, so as we select that option, Rob, and now Print Simple also allows you to set up multiple warehouses. So again, a lot of you are operating out of a single location, but maybe you have plans for expansion, or maybe you have different ideas, like maybe if Jesse was using the software, he would have a warehouse for production and then a warehouse for fulfillment so that his two teams don't clash, because that's a very different business than this one. So it gives you the ability to set it up, again, in the way that makes sense for your business. Maybe today it's just one simple warehouse that encompasses where you print your orders from. So as you select the warehouse, Rob, and then from there you can just name the automation role. So maybe in this case we'll select screen printing pre-production. And then now as you scroll down, you'll see that you have the ability to set conditions. So in this case what I'm trying to demonstrate is I want to have this rule set up and I want the decoration method to be screen printing. So I'll select screen printing and I'll click Save. So now, once I create my automation, I'm pretty much telling the system, when all of these stars align, and they say, when an order is submitted to production, it gets sent to this warehouse in my account, and the decoration method is screen printing, let's customize that workflow. Because what you do for screen printing might be very different to DTF. So as we scroll down, you now have the option to add actions. So here is where we can add an action, and the action we want to choose is create a task. So here, what a task is, it represents the job. So now what we can do with the system is we can take all of the artworks that are screen printing in this order and do something with them. So now the task is going to be something like mixing ink. And now you can have that artwork duplicated into as many jobs as you need to, because we're talking about that parallel workflow, enabling your team to work in sequence with each other, and then obviously limiting them when maybe they can't be working in sequence because they got to be working up and down. So in this case here, what you're seeing is options to set whether the task is for pre-production or production. So imagine that maybe you're not going to create a task when an order is submitted to production for the production part of the order, because you don't want the guy on the press knowing about this job yet. He doesn't need to know about that. It's not scheduled, it's not ready. There's like a million other steps that got to happen. So I don't got to worry about confusing this person with all this extra information that they don't need to see right now. So as we come down here, you'll have the options to set those stations like I talked about. So maybe you set up your business where there's an ink mixing station. And then now maybe there's a certain person that is going to be navigating. So you can just select no user. And then now even further to that, maybe you want to group orders into tasks. So imagine that you had a single day of production, and now there's a way to group all your screen printing artworks into a task. And then now your guy who's doing the mix inking, he knows about every single artwork for today's production in one place. So he's not having to look at one job, mix ink, and then look at the next job, oh man, like we're using the same colors in this one. Why did I put that away? I can just stay in one place, one focused place to do it, and work on it in a way that's more efficient. Or again, going back to the point of customizing it the way that works for you. If that doesn't make sense, you're like, I like to keep it separated by job because that makes sure that we just get things done one at a time. Go for it. It's really up to you how to decide. But the point is that as I click Save here, I can now continue to add more tasks. So maybe this is the task to make ink, and then I want to add another task. So you can create as many automation rules as you want, based on the criteria of what you imagine. And what we're just trying to enable you to do is to play with this and say, hey, maybe I want to have one task for production because that's how I do it. Maybe you want to have it as many tasks. It just really depends on how you run your business. But now imagine this. Imagine that Jesse had a poll set up with a QR code on it. And now every time the guy running the press is asking, what do I do next? Imagine he can walk up with a barcode scanner. He can scan this QR code, and now it pops up a screen with all of the jobs that have been assigned to that station. And then now he knows in a very single place, like these are my jobs. I don't got to go ask 10 people down the line, hey, was the mixing ink completed? Was the inventory completed? No, that job ended up at that station because the workflow made sure that it landed there just in time. And then now the same way it goes for the guy who's mixing ink. It's no more like, what do I do next? It's kind of like, go to that station, we can put a QR code, use a barcode scanner, have a tablet, and then now all of a sudden your people feel like, wow, like this is super cool, like we have tablets and stuff, like, it brings a different kind of culture, and again, it's something that maybe you never thought could be possible, but definitely some ways to really think about improving the way that you organize your shop. So I'm sure that maybe after we can speak to some of the things that Jesse's doing, but I would say that Sean has been widely adopting it, and there's some other people in this room, and it seems like it just creates that delightful experience for your employees to just click a button and say like, oh wow, like just magic, like magic. How does it work? I don't know, but what a great place to work, right? So the only last thing I'll say is maybe you can even think about using automations if you click an add action. You have other things like adding an order tag. Maybe a lot of you guys are used to like tags. So you like use tags to organize your stuff. So you tag it screen printing so that you can filter by a tag, or you tag it as needs SEP, and that's the way how you identify it. So don't be intimidated by all of the options. Just imagine them as your playground to do it the way that makes the most sense, and figure out all the different workflows that you might implement and so on. Maybe you want to flag an order as high priority once the inventory comes in, so that you can isolate only those orders that are high priority right now to go on the press. We're just trying to help you be able to make those decisions quicker. It shouldn't be a science to know what's ready to go and what's not. And a lot of the time, it seems like it is, right? It's like I need to know like 10 different fields that I'm keeping track of, and all of these different data points, and I'm like, why don't I just click a button and like I get the information that I need, and now I just tell the guy to do it, right? Easier said than done, but I think that's what we're trying to enable, and that's our goal, of course. So obviously, I know that some of these workflows might be a little bit more complicated to others, and there's definitely a lot of information that I had to skip over with the time that I have. But I think we have about 5 more minutes, so I'd like to open the floor for more questions, or if I've answered everything, then I guess that's a good thing too. Absolutely.
Customer quotes, like what's the capability of this software to sort of distinguish what's involved in like the screen printing? Like is it a 1 color versus a 5 color? Like
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And Rob, sorry if I invite you.
We need a clicker next year.
Okay, so can you just get out of this and go to this? Okay, so scroll down. No, sorry, you want to go back? Okay, and then now do full screen and then scroll down a bit. So scroll down a little bit more. Okay, great. Scroll down. Okay, so speaking to the question, if you scroll down just a little bit more. So speaking to your question, it was like, well, how do I put in like different information about the screen printing order, because my customer just gave me a graphic, but I need to evaluate it and say it's a 5 color, and therefore it's going to be attached to a 5 color pricing program.
well, sort of. I meant like when they get the preliminary quote,
Yes.
they first put everything in. If
Yes.
you're getting a quote for say $500.
Yes.
When it goes to a 1 color drop,
Right.
it's actually a 5 color.
Yes. Right, exactly. So that's where like we're trying to like create the best experience for your customer, including like disclaimers saying, hey, heads up, you can add an estimate of colors that you think that are there, and then that way we can generate at least a quoted price, so at least you know the difference between a 1 and a 5. And then by the time you actually go in here, you have the ability to do things like map even artwork colors. So maybe the customer came to you and says, I have a very, very defined artwork color I need you to do. So now the salesperson comes in here, they scroll down, they click artwork colors, and if you click that, you can see here now that I can tell the system, hey, like these are the specific Pantones and colors you want to use. But the great thing is that this is not like your typical softwares where it's just a file and it's now attached as a note. And then the next time the order comes in, you got to do it again or remember or recall in a note. Like this information now follows the order into production. So when the guy's mixing ink, he's like, oh, look, I got to do this. I got the instructions already. I don't got to miss those details anymore. And when the customer comes and does a repeat job, that information's there as well. So if there was notes added, if there was artwork colors, any stitch counts, all this information is going to be there. And things like mock-up files, all these extra properties that you guys want to keep track of. Maybe you don't do it on the estimate level, maybe you only do it in production, but depending again, what kind of business you run, maybe you feel like that's the way to do it. And we have a question in the back?
So, just trying to understand this.
Of course.
So here with SNS or whoever, right?
Yep.
You get the app,
Yep.
you get our account number, you get in there and you get our pricing, you load up our pricing on that system, right?
So the idea is that whenever you work with SNS, they have this thing called an API. And that API is like a specific password that is specific to your account. So that password is private to you, and now ultimately when you're interacting with the platform, we get that information exclusively for your account, so it's not like it's shared with other people that are using the software.
The second question to that is, once it's loaded into the app,
Yep.
can I alter that complete pricing structure by percentage?
Right, so you're saying that, whenever I get into the app and I say, okay, I got all the SNS products in front of me, I want to now take my $269 price and mark it up, 30% because that's the price I want my customers to pay. Does that answer your question?
Right, but does that go into the net cost? Like, it's just, is there login way of them going in? Like, do you have
So the way...
distributor account, do you have a retail account?
Right, great question. So imagine that when you're setting up your Print Simple catalog, and maybe I can just switch to another page here to make a little bit more sense of the question. But imagine something like this, which is going to represent this catalog product. So in this case, again, we're showcasing the Lane 7 product here. Imagine this is an SNS product, whatever that might be. So these are all the options that they offer. And now it's up to your business to say whether you offer all of these options or not, because we're not biased to what you want to offer. So maybe you come here and you toggle off some colors because you're like, I don't carry those ones, they're not reliable. So you're going through this exercise of configuring this product to the spec of your business. And then now as we scroll down, you'll see things like I was touching on. You might have DTG in your account with all these print areas, but now I scroll down, DTG isn't applied to that. This product only lends itself to a full front screen printing. So I'm creating this nucleus, this business, the brain for my business, so that now whenever I show this data to customers, it knows exactly what to do with it. And again, whenever you have a salesperson who's using it, they don't got to make decisions on the fly. This is the configuration, that's what you sell. Go out and sell what we set up. So to your question, as I scroll down, and I keep going, you're going to see sections like inventory. So whenever you start ordering from SNS, if you have stuff in stock, then we can keep track of that as you receive purchase orders. And then now as we go to your product costs and prices, so if you scroll up a little bit and you expand maybe extra small. So this is where you're going to have the ability to sync your base costs and then apply a smart pricing rule to say, I want to make 30% on this specific SKU and be able to configure all that extra information. Does that answer your question? Okay, maybe we can talk after, absolutely. And was there any other questions? Absolutely. A work order? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're going to need to go to this warehouses. Yeah. Okay, so go to production. You know what? This account doesn't have one. Okay, I'm going to have to show you privately because this account that I'm demoing with doesn't have anything set up right now, but I'd definitely be happy. I have my laptop all day, so we can go through that. Was there any other specific questions?
How much per user?
Great question. So right now the pricing is not based on users. So you can have an unlimited amount of user accounts in the software. The only pricing that changes is going to be with whether the integrations that you take advantage of. So, if you want all of the inventory integrations and all of what it's worth, you want shipping integrations with your shipping carriers, that's how it's going to fluctuate the price. It starts at $3.99 a month, and then it will continue to rise based on different integrations that you're taking on. So obviously, it all really depends on the onboarding and what you need, and that's sort of how we customize everyone's account to the spec that they need it for. Absolutely.
Is it like ready to roll now?
Oh, we have it in the field. We have a couple of clients that I would be happy to introduce you to that are using it. But yeah, that's the idea is that we've been developing it for 3 years. So coming on March, it'll be 3 years, and we've had it in the field since April of 2023.
But it's still in the
I guess.
launch,
Exactly. I'm not trying to open the floodgates to absolutely everyone because I want to try and support the early adopters as best I can and continue to refine the roadmap. So whenever we say soft launch, it's like it's ready to go. It's just now a matter of being able to have everything that everyone needs and just continue to make progress on that.
If I can say my opinion on it, we use it every day at the shop. I tried everything. I tried Printavo, Inksoft, Deco, YoPrint. I tried them all, spent a lot of money trying to build my own, trying to do everything. They all have their strengths and they all have their weaknesses, right? Printavo is really great if you want to be customize everything. Their purchase ordering system sucks like balls. Like there's really strengths for everything. There's weaknesses on anything. This software here lets you do whatever you want to do with it, in the sense of if your shop is big, you can automate every single department in your shop, right? We can have barcodes in every single department. That's how we run it because we've grown to that. But if I look at it and I want to be simple on a one-man shop, I can still automate things to where its status is pretty much like Deco or Inksoft, right? Oh, okay, I'm going to go prep my screens, scan it, prep my screens. I'm going to go print my shirts, scan that, opens the job, going to do that. It's as simple or as complex as you want to make it. Does anybody know here RealThread? Their website, RealThread, probably the best website I've ever seen online for an online custom t-shirts. If you don't know RealThread, go look at RealThread's website for custom t-shirts. They have the best quoting system out there available. My dream when I was a kid and I started this business, I was like, I want to be like RealThread. That's why I started printing water-based thing, all right? They don't offer custom online design tool on their website. It's exactly like this, what he was showing up front. There's no good software if you want to do good screen printing that's going to give you a good quoting system on the basis of color of your print. Deco, Inksoft, you put a logo, it's going to tell you how many colors you want, or it's going to convert it to a vectorized image. Your fades are not going to be right. It's not true screen printing. That's why RealThread, which is focused on quality and focused on giving a good product, is doing it this way. It's a quoting system. Because I have somebody that goes in afterward, revises it, separates the artwork. Maybe I need an underbase. Maybe I'm going to go with discharge, right? There's no software online, even with AI, that can say, oh, okay, this shirt's going to do that, because everybody does it different. This is why I love that. That's my 2 cents. And why I'm jumping both feet in is because I see where this can go. And it's enabling me to make more money by using what they offer. So I'm not looking at it and comparing, oh, I don't have this feature that I used to have there. All right, what's the strength of this software that I can use for me and make it simpler in my shop? That's why I fell in love with this. That's why I'm full on, like, all right, this is what we're doing. Because it's enabling me to make more money. Yes, when you're small, you want to offer everything to everybody. It makes sense because you're small. You want a business to come in, right? The jack of all trades is a master of none. We started making money when we started focusing on what we wanted to be good at. Now we want to jump with POD because this is offered. I wanted to jump into print on demand forever. Use ShipStation, manually automating, invoicing a lot of people, doing that on myself. I wasn't sleeping and I wasn't making any money because I didn't know how to charge it, how to do it, how am I going to pack that, pick that, charge for a thank you card. If you want to scale, doing something small, 30 orders in a day is simple. Zach and Dave were able to get 10,000, 12,000 different orders in every single day and manage that and do that. So now we're able to have their skill, their knowledge from doing that, implementing it in the software. For me, that's why I was like, I'm all in. I don't have 12,000 orders in a day. I've never had that. My goal is to outpace that, right? Everybody's goal is to go bigger. But now I know I have a software that can handle it. So if you simplify your business, it's going to get complicated with a shit ton of volume. That's where we want to go. That's why I have this. So if you want to go in the bandwagon of like, all right, I want to systemize my business and I want to grow my business and make more money, look at something like that. That's my 2 cents. I've tried them all. They all have their strengths. You can all make a shit ton of money with each. But then when you go to market something, you want to do more marketing with Deco. All right, fine. I'm at checkout. How can I do something like add 4 more products and I'm going to give you 10% off? There's no solutions out there that can offer you that right now. But then I'm wise with marketing and I'm like, all right, well, Deco's now not enabling me to make more money with marketing because it's stuck with their platform. So he's not saying like, don't use Deco because he owns Principle. He's like, okay, don't do that. I'm telling you, build a Shopify, make your own marketing the way you want it. Sell it with a quoting system. Have your sales team run through that. It's my 2 cents as a shop owner that made a lot of mistakes and spent a lot of money on those software trying to make it work. At the end of the day, you're just a number for them, right? So you call, you want some features, you want that. Hey, enable me to add my pixel from Facebook. My Google products, I want them all live so everybody can shop on Google. Oh, sorry, I can't do that. You got to do it manually. All right, we're going to put in the time. We're going to put those 2 weeks in, but why? Why isn't it not just automated? Shopify does that. So if anybody has questions, I'll be more than happy to be open with you guys, let you know how we use it, how it's changed our business, enabling us to make more money. Yeah, I think it's good.
So I appreciate that, Sean. I think the biggest point to take away from what he's saying is everyone does their business in a different way, and that's why, this workshop has been so extensive in teaching you, do it the way that makes sense. And that's why, whether a solution like this is good for you today or maybe not, but at least you can understand, what you're trying to work towards and what problems you're trying to solve. If you're not trying to solve the efficiency of your marketing staff with your website or the efficiency of your customer service, and you prefer that they take every single email and put it into a system manually, then maybe Print Simple is not the right solution. But if you value things like that and you want to create a delightful experience for your employees, maybe there is room to have a discussion. So it's not about how you should do it, it's just how you want to move forward and continue to grow, and enabling you with some tools that can really eliminate the need to have to create custom software and go through that whole nightmare that we've gone through and can learn from and can teach you guys. So again, I think we're just got time for one more question if there was, or okay, looks like, yeah, absolutely.
How long does it take to get set up?
Yeah, great question. Great question. Yeah, right. So I have to answer that question with a little bit of an asterisk because it just depends on how complicated, your business is. Are you just sorry, great question. Sorry, I didn't repeat the question. Sorry, Rob. So the question was like, how long does it take to generally get set up with Print Simple? And I was just replying saying that question is a little bit hard to answer directly because depending on what you do in your business, if you're just utilizing the quoting tool and that's it, like nothing else matters to you, that's pretty straightforward. That can happen within a matter of a couple of days to a week. But if we're talking about like doing print on demand and fulfillment and trying to aspire to Avid Apparel and do all these great things, well then maybe it might take a little longer, but doesn't go without saying that it's not possible. So it just really depends on what problems you're trying to solve, and again, even if it's something that Print Simple can't help you with, I'm happy to just guide you. Like I said, Jesse's ran his business using money.com and things like that, and he's doing just great. So everyone has their different challenges and things like that. So hopefully this was informative. And there's one more question. Absolutely.
Do you create customer profiles and create automation based on customers?
So we consider, whenever you say customer profiles, are you saying that when an order comes in from a certain customer, what you want to be able to maybe add a custom insert? Or like what would be like maybe an example of that?
Like a wholesaler versus a walk-in.
Okay.
And like the differences how we actually track versus the offering.
Okay, so now just to go through the process with you, like are you setting up that customer's account manually and then pretty much going into their profile saying set like some sort of a pricing level on their account manually and then based on the way that they're set up, then you would run some rules? Or is it, am I understanding that correctly?
Attaching a customer profile to an order that's going through the system.
Okay.
To see who that job is going to and like how we treat that job.
Okay, so now whenever it comes to that customer's order, the employees in the production need to be sort of like aware of that customer and knowing that that customer gets treated a little bit differently? Okay, and I guess maybe it would be a good time to have like a more specific discussion so I can understand the requirement. But the point of the point of the question he was asking is, is the only touch point on automating based on like artwork in an order? Can we do more with it? And the answer is yes. And that's where again I come to these places to try and figure out like what are those things that are so important for you guys. So yeah, I mean any of those specific questions I'd be happy to discuss after this presentation. And I appreciate everyone's time and focus here. I know I've been talking a lot, and obviously I look forward to having more discussion. So without further ado.